Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Thomas, and I have the honor to lead the product team at Qonto. So for those of you who don't know us, Qonto, we are a neobank that's targeting freelancers, small and medium businesses. We offer banking services like current accounts, cards, transfers, and so on. And on top of that, we had a layer, like a software layer or SaaS layer, to make managing your business finances super easy. So what we're trying to achieve is to change the relationship businesses have with their bank and make them love their bank again. So to give you a little bit of history, okay, so that's okay. That's what our product looks like. And to give a little bit of history, the company was founded in mid-2016, so it's still quite recent. And I joined the company in March 2017. At the time, we were roughly 10 people. We were in a private beta phase. And just a quick note, we really thank the family who were amongst our very first testers and gave us a lot of great feedback. So we were in that beta phase. And just 4 months after that, we launched the product. So every company could open an account with us. We were roughly 20 people in the team, and this was really the good times. For one thing, it's that, okay, they're not in the right order, okay. We had the feeling that all our efforts were directly converted into value for end users. So that was a great feeling, and things were somewhat easy. But again, something really interesting happened. It's great, we had a lot of traction. And by a lot of traction, I mean that by the end of 2017, so half a year after the launch, we had 5,000 business customers, so 5,000 companies who had opened an account with us. So it's already quite a big responsibility. And we had to scale our team, so at the time we were already like 50 people. Our product team, we were 3 product managers, 2 designers, and roughly 20 engineers. And leap forward, end of 2019, at 18, sorry, so a month ago, we multiplied the number of users by 6. So we now have 30,000 business customers. And now our headcount is 120 people. So it's been a very, very massive scale up, and it also brought a lot of frustrations in the whole process. What happens what's happening when you scale up is that all these efforts you're putting for your users, they get diluted very fast. They get diluted by a lot of different things, by meetings, by processes, by also things that you sense they are here, but you don't really know what it is. But all in all, it takes much more efforts to bring value to your end users. Who here has never heard a sentence that sounds like, if we don't ship fast enough, it's because of any of those, or if we ship bad quality, it's because of any of those kind of frustration. I think everyone heard it at least once. We heard it, and we started thinking, okay, what's our way to fight that? How can we grow with more stability? Tonight, I'm going to talk about 2 very specific things we've been putting in place. The first one is the pool system, which is our way to work in a very, well, I would say, harmonious way between product and tech teams, and it goes actually beyond those. And the second one is what's our way to solve problems. So I think there's some founders here and people who work in product team in startups. And well, when you're in the first year of your startup, you are trying to survive. You try to exist on your market, you try to have traction, you try to prove that there is a product market fit, and to do that, you have to do a lot of things. Actually, you want to do a lot of things, and you are trying probably to do too many things. So let's say you have your first customer feedback, and they tell you that they want this or that, so you want to do it. You have your operation team who tells you that they need this tool for their back office. You have, and I'm absolutely sure this one will resonate, you have the founder who overnight had this great idea of a feature and he wants it for tomorrow. And it's absolutely not in your roadmap. It happens to everyone, and it's what we call here stockpiles. It's all the things that you bring in your process, in your flow, you push it inside, and you don't actually have the capacity to deliver it. So you're creating these stockpiles, and these stockpiles are actually a big problem to have stability. Stock has three problems. First one is it rots, it's noisy, and it's frustrating. It rots because you had these product managers and product team who worked on great solutions at a specific time for your product. And well, if you have a stockpile, maybe it's not going to be shipped right away. It's going to maybe be done in like 2, 3, 4 months. You don't know. And when you're actually going to be able to start developing it, probably that everything you specified will not be valid anymore. Let's say your product has changed, your design has changed. You have a competitor who did something and your solution is not valid anymore. Your stock is rotting. And rotting means that you will have to rework it, and we don't like rework. It's really inefficient. The second thing is stock is noisy. It's all these things that add up, and you constantly have to think about it and prioritize it over and over again. And when you should be actually focusing on the few things that matters most to your company and your product, you're thinking about all this stock. And the stock is frustrating at different levels. It's frustrating at a personal level. When you're a product manager or a designer and you work on something and it's actually never shipped, it's frustrating, and actually employees leave companies because of that. And it's frustrating at a team level, at an entire team level. You are a software engineer, you're a CTO, it's the beginning of the startup, you're working super hard, you're doing everything you can to bring new stuff to your users, and whenever you do that, you see that stock that's always coming, and you don't have the capacity to ship it. It's super frustrating. So this is what we would call the push system. You keep on pushing things in your flow. What we are doing, what we're trying to do, is a change of paradigm. It's seeing things the other way around. How do we pull things out of this system? The pull system, basically, the first thing we had to do to put it in place was to visualize this flow. This is a really fancy picture of one of the board that's behind our product team and in our product and tech open space. There's a few people at Qonto here, and they will tell you that we love to put whiteboards everywhere, and we write everything on walls. It's to the point it gets a bit weird. So this board is actually two boards. The left one is a Kanban board, which is everything that's in the discovery phase. So we haven't started coding it yet. And the Gantt chart on the right is everything that's currently being developed. Showing all this first is great because we make it visible to everyone in the company. You can know exactly what we're working on at a very specific time. The main thing with the pull system is that when we look at it, we always look at it from the right to the left, always. And the main thing we have to always think about is we never work on something until someone who will be on the right of the board will tell you you can actually do it. So for instance, let's say you're a product manager, you're working on two features. One of them is in testing phase, it's about to be released, and the other one is in discovery phase. You just don't even know your solutions yet. But it appears that this feature in very early stage is crucial for the company, and it's probably the one that's going to bring great acquisition for the next 6 months and so on. A year ago, it would have been completely okay to have that product manager working on this. But now, with this system, if we know that there is something that's close to be shipped, that's where the whole effort should be put on. And making it visual is very important because when we do our stand-up meeting in the morning, we just have to look behind us and we see exactly this, and we know what's the priority right now, and the priority is what's to the right. So this visualization is great because it highlights problems. It makes them visible. When there is a delay, when there is a stockpile that's appearing, we see it and we can prevent it from happening. And the whole system is based on what we would call the production signal. So as I was saying, you don't work on something until someone who's later in the stage of that feature or product will tell you that you can actually work on it. So when you look at this, there is one very interesting thing. It's these cards in the bottom here, that we would call the graveyard. These are things we started working on, and some of them were actually almost fully specified. And we came to a point where we realized that we don't have the resources to ship it now, and we have more important things to do. They almost were all put down there a few months ago when we started to use this pool system. And since then, as we've been quite disciplined in doing that, we almost didn't take any card down because we know exactly what we're able to ship and we plan accordingly. So this system is one of our key to bring stability between product and tech team in this very fast-growing environment. This is bringing this stability and this is encouraging teamwork because we have to talk a lot between teams. But this is more like a tool we're using. The other thing we wanted to talk about is how do we approach problem solving, and how we avoid to bring a new methodology, but try to focus on how people will actually be part of this. So at the time we were using a lot of things from the agile methodology. We were not doing it like extremely precisely, but we were doing sprints, and we were frustrated with sprints because we had the feeling that each sprint was just finishing what we didn't finish on the previous one, and it was reworking things that didn't work. And we were also doing retrospectives, and there were things that we didn't really like about it. I'm not saying agile is bad, I'm just saying that either we were not doing it right or we were not comfortable thinking that this was our way. So retrospectives, you bring really smart engineers in a room to talk about the problem they faced in the last week or last 2 weeks. That was one first thing that we didn't really like, to have to wait to say that you have a problem. That's what we would call like the microwave problem. You cook it, but you don't really, you warm it, but you don't really know when it was cooked. So you lose a lot of substance because it's when the frustration is there that you can really think of the solutions to that problem. The second thing is that usually in this retrospective we would talk about big problems and come up with big solutions that are hard to implement. We would often talk that we need to change a framework, that we need to change our organization, big things like that, and they are really hard to articulate. And that's the second point. They are hard to challenge, and usually when these things come up to the management team, there are big problems. We don't have time for that. We have to ship. And that leads to the third point, which is the frustration. You have these very smart engineers who are coming up with solutions many times, and they're never put in practice. So frustration. So our way to work, we found it in a Japanese concept. It's called Kaizen, and literally it means improve for better. It's not a tool per se, it's more like a way to approach problem solving. Kaizen has three main things in it. The first one is to involve the teams. So everyone is involved in finding the solutions to the problems and defining it first and solving it. The second thing is to trust them. You hired people because you think they're good at what they're doing, because they're smart, so you have to let them figure out the solutions to their problems. And the third thing is, well, you have to create the environment for that. So you give them time and the resources to test their ideas. So in short, you define the problem, you invest time, and you have an engineering mindset. So how does it actually work? So this is a Kaizen. So you see it's really not fancy, it doesn't require much gear. And I'll take a very concrete example. It was the first Kaizen I worked on. So in our system, it's the product managers who are doing the final QA before releasing something. And at some point we had the feeling that we were spending way too much time doing that. And QA is not the funniest thing to do. And we would rather be working on discovery and talking to users and finding great solutions. So we had this intuition that we were spending too much time doing that. So the first thing was to actually measure it. So we just started a spreadsheet, created a spreadsheet, and started logging the time we spent doing QA. And the result was very interesting. On the first week, for 3 product managers, we had spent 18 hours testing stuff. So we started meeting every day in front of a whiteboard at the same time. It has to be something with some discipline, so it was very important that we have it every day. And well, the thing is, you can't really tackle a big problem like that. We're spending too much time on QA. It's okay. There's no clear solution to that. So we would first have to analyze it, and we would do what like a football coach would do. When you know there's something wrong, you watch it in slow motion. And in our case, watching it in slow motion was actually taking each day 1 session of tests we were doing and log in a spreadsheet minute per minute all the gestures that the product managers would be doing. And then it started getting really interesting. The first one was mine. I had to test something on an Android feature. So first I look for a phone, and I don't find one, so I go to the Android team's desk and get one. They give me one, and now it's not charged. Okay, fair enough. I go back to my desk, I charge it, and then it turns on, and then I don't know which version of the build I should test. So I go back to the Android team desk and ask for the right build. They put it on it. Okay, now I think I'm ready to test it. I've already been spending probably 10 minutes, which are just pure waste. After these 10 minutes, I launched the app, and then we're testing on a staging environment, and I need a VPN to be connected, and it's not configured on this phone. Another 5 minutes are lost. And just looking at these things in a very detailed way, we really highlighted what was wrong, and we could find very small countermeasures for all these tiny problems. And that's the power of the Kaizen, is that you're breaking down the big problem into very tiny problems, and you find countermeasures that can be implemented on a daily basis. One example of a countermeasure is this. This is a phone stand that we have on the product team desk that just says there should always be an Android device here. And we've defined what an Android device that is ready for QA is, and there is now always one on our desk. Just a quick word for the product managers of Qonto who are here tonight. When I left the office, it was like that, so it was not where it should be. Which leads to my next point, is that Kaizen requires discipline. It doesn't work if everyone is not playing the game and trying to really work these countermeasures. So this is one countermeasure, but there's been many of them. And in the end, at the end of the Kaizen, we just have this document that is like summing up all the things we did. And we have the potential in the beginning, so we had 18 hours of QA per week for 3 PMs, the analysis of all the issues we were encountering, and all the learnings we had, because after it was 6 weeks, we had a lot of learnings. And the great thing is that this big problem, that was how do we lower total time of QA by product team, we divided it by 3, just with very small countermeasures each day. So Kaizen is a very powerful tool because of 3 things. It's a great way to solve very tough problems that would be way too big to have one single solution. It creates teamwork, because these solutions, we couldn't find them just by ourselves in the product team. We had to go over with the Android team. We had to go over to the operations team and look at all these solutions together. So it's a great way to bring more communication and lower frustrations between teams. And the third one, which is the most important one, is that we train people at getting better. We train them because we make them ask themselves questions that they would probably not ask otherwise. And we put them in an environment where they can challenge everything, they can suggest any kind of solution, and we will just try them. So Kaizen is a really, really powerful tool. It's one of the things we are putting in place. these are just two things. We are doing much more things in that area of how do we bring to stability, how do we make sure we scale in a way that's gonna be really efficient soon, and we always want the same thing. It's how do we bring more value to our users, and these two things, well, they are exactly trying to break what I was showing in the beginning, that we had been diluting this, the power of our efforts. So I didn't want to conclude with some kind of lame inspirational quote, but last night I just heard this thing by Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba, and he was saying, like, there is no experts of tomorrow, only experts of yesterday and today. And these tools are exactly that. It really resonated to me because with these tools, we are creating the experts of today, but we're preparing for tomorrow. We are finding our own way to solve our problems. So it would take a lot of time to get into more details about everything we do, but we have just started a blog about it, so feel free to go there, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Just a question. How do you balance operations improvement and your business as usual in terms of workload for your team?
So how do we scale operations?
No. How do you balance your day-to-day between Kaizen, which I understand is operations improvement, and just business as usual? Because I'm guessing you need to do things.
The very important thing with Kaizen is that it's a discipline. It's something that has to happen every day. And it doesn't have to take hours. It's usually depending on the Kaizen. So just for information, we have like 10 Kaizen running at the moment at Qonto. It's like 30 minutes we take each day. Usually it's 2 people, plus we would bring in other people who could help us solve these problems. But it's usually 30 minutes. And then we would define countermeasures. And we try to think of them as really small things that can be easily actioned. So that's one of the cool things. It doesn't look like we are just building processes and adding more stuff. We're just doing very small things, but on a daily basis. So it's almost not perceived in your day-to-day work.
Thank you.
I had another question. So earlier when you showed your pool system, you mentioned that you would focus, or you would rather have the product manager focus on shipping something that's like almost ready, rather than spend on time discovery for a critical feature. Like, wouldn't you say that could be limiting, or how do you rationalize the benefits of this approach?
Well, first, the benefit of the approach is that, well, you're eliminating these stockpiles I was mentioning. And the only way to eliminate things that are in the stock is to take things out of the whole flow. So usually I would give a very concrete example. Let's say that the feature that's almost ready to be shipped, actually we forgot to plan on how we are going to test it, and it actually happened. So the developer is done. His job is done here. He can focus on something else. And the PM, maybe he needs the developer to actually test it because he didn't really plan for it before. And then the feature will just fall in some kind of gray zone where everyone is waiting everyone. And that happened many times for different reasons. With this approach, you can coordinate on a daily basis, or even half a day, to make sure that you are going to take care of the problem, because this is a problem, and this system is just making it visible. Otherwise, it could have waited here for a while, and no one would have taken care of it. But here, you just see it, and well, it's just a very almost philosophical approach. You don't push something before you've been able to pull something. I don't know if it's clear. Well, somehow there is multitasking, because the product manager I was using as an example is working on two different things. It's just focusing on where the effort should be put. So we're not working on only one thing at Qonto. We have a number of projects we're working on, and it's okay. We're just trying to keep the number of projects as low as possible so that we are able to put as much effort as we can on these projects. It's another concept that's called the one-piece flow, on just trying to put as many people working on a topic until it gets inefficient, of course, but make sure that we put all the efforts on the minimal number of things.
Questions?
Hello. So my question is, how do you plan your roadmap? Because I think the Scrum method is all about planning everything, and now you were not, I mean, to me, you were not really speaking about when the product will be done. Is it just like it's done when it's done, or you have like still a timeline, mm-hmm. and you know when it's going to be ready to be shipped?
So it's a little bit of a different approach. We don't have a roadmap that would look like a beautiful Gantt chart where we can say we're going to do this in 6 months from now. Honestly, we don't really believe in it because, well, if you look far away, the uncertainty will be really big, and especially in early stage startups, it's really hard to forecast what's going to happen. So our approach is more than we have like 3 or 4 major topics for the whole company, and we're going to put as much effort on these topics as possible. But these topics can be huge. The main one at the moment is building our banking infrastructure. It's a 1-year project, so we had to well, slice it in hundreds of smaller pieces, and we're just thinking of, okay, when we look at the things we're working on right now, are we putting as much effort as we can on what's been defined as the first or one of the first most critical topic we should address? So at the moment, well, it's very clear for us. We have like 3 main projects: is our banking infrastructure, opening Qonto in 3 new countries, and improving our onboarding experience. Anything that's not part of these 3 topics should not be on the boards I showed earlier. So we just try to slice them in very tiny chunks, and once they are past the discovery phase and we're ready to actually code them, then we have an ETA for this task. But we're setting deadlines, but they're more like a target that's not extremely well defined. It's just something to have in mind that, okay, by this date we should have opened Qonto in 3 new countries. But it's not a roadmap as you would usually think of it.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the talk. I have a question about the rhythm of the discovery phase. So how is it structured, and are all the teams involved in this prospect, or is it only in the product scope?
So this has changed a lot over the last year. Today we've split the whole discovery phase into much smaller phases. The first one would be what we call the scoping phase, where we're just validating the problem, making sure that there is actually a problem and we can address it now, and it's relevant for us to do it now. And we'll then work on a catalog of solutions. At this time, it's mostly the product manager and product designers. And then they will challenge, they will have their solutions challenged by lead developers usually, and our VP of engineering, so that he will just validate that we are thinking of things in an efficient way and we're not over-engineering or something. But we're still with a catalog of solution. After that, we try to get consensus on one solution, the one that seems to be the best. And then we are going to write the specification for it and make all the final designs. And we go really far in the details of what's in the specification. And once this is done, it has to be reviewed by other product managers, just to make sure we haven't forgot anything, and we have like checklist of things we have to be careful about that we've been building over time. And once this is done, we have what we call the tech discovery, where the product manager will introduce the feature to all the developers who are going to work on it. And then they will do what we call the dive-in. And in the dive-in phase, all the developers will actually take as much time as they need to describe the whole implementation, make sure the API is designed so that our front end, the mobile apps, and everyone will be happy using it. And only once they have done that, they move to the delivery phase, and that's only then that we have the delivery, the estimated delivery time.
Okay, so does that mean that every feature that you deliver, every product manager will have reviewed it?
At the moment, we have 8 product managers. So for one card, one feature, or sometimes it can be like a bug fix that requires functional specification, there will be 2 reviews by other product managers.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you again for the talk. So my question is going to be about the company more than what you thought about, you talked about earlier. So I believe there are not that many in the market so far for the businesses. I'm not talking about auto entrepreneurs. I think you have 2 other competitors, main competitors, or maybe 1. And so I was wondering, how did you do the job of actually educating your customers? Did the other neobanks for customers did the job already, and then it was easier for businesses, or you had to do a whole work of really making the businesses comfortable with having their main account in a neobank?
This is a really broad question because it's a matter of trust. Because when you are a neobank, well, you have to build trust because people are putting their money in your account, and you have to make sure that everything is safe and stuff. So there is this. And apart from that, what we really try to do is making sure we start from what our users need. So when we started, much before I joined, before starting Qonto, the founders ran 150 interviews with CEOs and CFOs to really understand their needs and build what would be an MVP based on that. So I think that's how we got this traction initially. It's that what we had built was what they needed. And we didn't really have any competitor who had that feature set. They had specialized over some specific things like cards or FX, like transfers in other currencies, these things. But just have a current account with cards, transfers, and basic stuff. There wasn't really any neobank for that. So yeah, we just came up with something that was slightly different in terms of offer, and that apparently resonated, and that's how we got this initial traction. Que la famille.